Well, it's our joy to join you in what's relevant today. And between the two of us, we have 85 years or more of experience on being relevant. And we're going to talk a little bit today about breaking the rules and letting rule breaking be relevant. Because after this last year, I think we've wondered if speaking was ever going to come back. But it's come back in new ways. So I hope you have a pen and paper, because we're going to give you some action steps. And the first thing we're going to talk about, there are 5 things that we have broken rules on as speakers. And the first one is, neither you nor I, over the long haul, have had niches.
Yes, and it's interesting because I probably a little bit more than you had a niche when I began. Because I began in dentistry, that was my background, that was the terminology and the vocabulary which was familiar to me, and the preventive dentistry movement was in full swing, and my brother was a famous dentist, and all of a sudden I was off on a platform in that market. But then I realized how we could take those same topics and take them to associations and to corporations. And so that switch, that broadening, took me away from just that little niche into a much broader world. And a very exciting world, because as we know, when we're in that kind of a world, you're customizing every week. You're for a different organization or a different association. A lot of study.
And I think one of the things that comes out of that too is when I did my first seminar, here's what I asked myself, and I'd encourage you to write this one down. What are the 4 or 5 truths that you feel have allowed you to be successful as a person? And you get that as a question. What do I live by as a person? And what came to me were some pretty obvious things, that you need to smile at people, you need to ask questions, you need to listen to the answers. Those are broad topics. But I learned that every group has values, and they really need, as a speaker, to be speaking from what you really are.
So what you're really pointing out is what we based our careers on, our professional life on, and that's values and beliefs, integrity, authenticity, faith in God. That's one of the rules we broke, because you're not supposed to talk about your faith, your religion, your faith, or your political views, but our faith in God was our basis for our strength, for the empowerment. So you bring your vision and your beliefs to the platform, whether you realize you're doing it or not, because the person is the message. And you cannot be on the platform who are you really not, because people see how you live more than how they listen to how you talk. So your values become extremely important. And they've really been, I think, shown through our themes when we were presidents. Back when we had themes, mine was the privilege of the platform. And that was bringing my value of great privilege to come before one person in coaching, which is what I do now mostly, or in front of a huge group. It's a privilege. Each person you're talking to has their own story. So do I value that person in that audience, every one of them, bringing those values? And your wonderful, wonderful theme, Glenna.
Yeah, well, a living legacy, that's my goal, is to leave a lasting legacy. And this is something that I'd like you to write down. What is my purpose in life? In one sentence, can you tell me what your purpose in life is? For instance, my purpose is to ignite the spark of faith and love in the lives of all who know me, family first. That's my goal. And so to recognize that as what I'm about allows me to know every time I get on the platform or whenever I'm preparing, that's my goal. And so I think we recognize the importance of values and having your statement of purpose.
And I think so often people get on that platform for maybe the wrong reason. I was pondering this, and I don't think you and I ever spoke for money. Now, money came, and money's wonderful, and we've loved that privilege of having that income. But we didn't speak for money. We spoke to change lives.
And could I just add the fact, I think it's perfectly all right to speak for money if that's your goal. But if that's your goal, be authentic about it and tell the truth about the fact that it's important to you, that that's part of who you are. I think it leads to another rule we broke. We certainly broke the rule on the way we niched, which was a broad audience, and what our values were that made the difference, our purpose. I think another area is that we broke the rule with regard to faith, for sure. We never preached at people, nor did we push what we were saying on anybody else. But the next area, I think, was we didn't ever market.
You're correct. You're correct. And I think that's because we know that the best marketing is the person themselves. You're the best market. So if you do a phenomenal job and you go up to that meeting planner who is so appreciative and they say, oh, this was amazing. This was just amazing. And you say, I'd love to come back. I love this audience. And I have a message that I'd like to give another time. Maybe next year, maybe 2 years from now. But you are the best marketer. And then word of mouth. Those amazing meeting planners that we respect so much, they know each other. And they say, okay, who did a great job? We want that person. Now, I have to admit that I have a little niche in my pocket, a little special person, and he's really quite large, actually. He's tall and good looking, and his name is Jim Rohde. And he marketed for me for years. He'd say, oh, you've got to have Naomi. Haven't you had Naomi yet? Oh, she'd be great. And I've done the same thing for him. So word of mouth, you've marketed me. I've marketed you, Glenna. That's what NSA is all about. We love and respect what the other people in our association do, and we market them. And that's one of the benefits from being an NSA member.
And I think it's important to remember we're talking about the rules we broke that are still relevant. Let me say that again so you hear me. We broke the rules, but we're sharing with you the rules we broke that are still relevant. When we talk about radical relevance, it's important to know that everything that we have broken have actually been the things that have caused us to be successful. And I would just wrap up with this thought. The Cabot spirit is part of who we are.
Oh, it's such a huge part of who we are. Our association is so different because of our founder. And Cabot Robert came in and said, you know what, I'm going to break the rules. And I'm going to say, let's lay down our arms of competition. Let's share. Let's build a bigger pie, was his cute phrase. And then we each have a bigger piece of that pie. And so when we come to NSA, we are there to help each other. And our hallway marketing of each other and encouragement of each other is as important as anything. Yes. I love that about NSA.
Well, I think every time Cabot got on the platform, his intention was to love the audience. Mm-hmm. He really loved his audience. And I think that's another question you might ask yourself. What's my intention when I speak? Why am I speaking, and what's my intention? Because Cabot had an intention, and it was to make others feel loved.
And we've had people come and go through NSA very quickly because they had no intentionality. They just wanted to speak about anything. They had no passion for one particular thing. It was just a burning passion. And those are important parts of not rule breaking, but being significant and relevant because you believe in your message. And a challenge I would have for this group is to really seriously think about the theme of this meeting. It's going to be echoed over and over and over. But are you radically relevant? And if so, what does that mean to you? And what does it mean to your audience? And could you be more so? Might be a question that I would ask.
Yes, absolutely. Well, it's our joy to have shared with you just a few of the things that I think do make a difference when we speak. Marketing requires incredible research. Incredible research. You need to be able to know that company so much that they ask you, how long have you been a bowler when you worked for the Bowling Association? And so stop and ask yourself, what kind of research have I done? Because Cabot knew the people to whom he spoke, and he spoke with passion because he knew who they were, what they did. And I think that's one of the things you and I have done, is interviewed people when they came in the door and talked to them by name, even with Zoom. In the gallery, you can call people.
Absolutely. And that's a new venue that we're all using. And we belittle Zoom, but we have to remember our audience is used to it also now. And so we can look right at them and talk to them, even if it's a camera that's a picture of them across the country. So that's wonderful.
Well, I can tell you that we've not run out of stories.
No.
And so before we quit, we want to add a few stories. And so I want to just share one of my most embarrassing moments and a failure as a speaker, because I think it helps to know that everything isn't peachy keen. The fact is, sometimes it goes upside down. I was speaking in Los Angeles to a crowd of women who were in real estate, and I was talking to them about the importance of relating to people in their selling in particular. And a woman who had been in the bar for a while.
Oh, dear.
She came into the room. Now, I had just finished. The women were standing, clapping. And this woman said, "May I ask a question?" I said, "Sure, ask a question." She said, "How do you think you're ever going to talk to men when you talk about a balanced life? No man's got a balanced life. You can't talk to these things about this." And I started to cry. Not just a little bit. I mean, boo-hoo cry. And I said, well, you see, everybody's different. And there's a test called the DISC. And if you're a D, that you're a domineering person, and then if you're an I, there's a little difference because you're not so domineering, but you talk a lot and you're really warm and wonderful. But this woman wasn't being warm and wonderful, and I'm one that wants everything to be warm and wonderful, happy. Wasn't going that way.
Pretty tough.
I sold more material that night than I've ever sold because women were weeping. They were passing the Kleenex box around the room before we ever closed that meeting.
Because they saw you as vulnerable. And we all are. We all have a vulnerability. The first time I ever spoke at NSA, this was in 1977. I think I was about 10 years old, and I was not a member. And I didn't realize what this group was, and I walked in, and I mean, there was so much power in that room. I thought, what am I doing here? And I was going to be speaking on a very special gift, had a box wrapped with a bow, and I thought, I'm not sure that's going to go over here. Well, in the center of the room, right in the front row, was a guy with white hair. And afterwards, he came up to me and he said, that was the best speech I've ever heard in my entire life. His name was Cavett Robert. And of course, at the time, I didn't realize he probably said that to everyone. But I left that room so empowered. And I thought, how important it is that we empower each other, that we encourage each other, because we all have that vulnerability spot. I have spent time in the ladies' room in tears before going on the platform because I was so nervous. So we all have that. And so maybe it's important to break that rule of thinking that everybody's perfect and it all works well also.
There's more. But if we had all day, we could tell stories.
We could.
All day.
We could. Join us for coffee and we'll do it.
Yes, and that's another thing to write down. You want to write down everything that seems insignificant at the time, but I have sheets of paper that I got laminated with stories. And when I get ready to speak, I look at my laminated list of stories and say, which one of these fits
this situation? Yes, and then you customize it.
Exactly. So write down everything that
and name the stories, yes, because then you can remember it better. Yes. The train story, the Austin, Texas story, the whatever.
Exactly.
Yes.
The gorilla tracking story.
Yes.
All the stories, there are lots of them, and you might need to take time to go back and remember those stories and write them down, and then tell the details. People want the details. They want to see what the riverbed looked like if you were going down the river in the Grand Canyon. What did it look like? How did it feel? Make it real. That's a story, is when you make it real.
Well, Glenna, I have to say to you that having you as my bestest, and working with you through the years has been absolutely glorious. You are one of the brightest people I've ever known in my life, and I know I don't need to say that, but I love you, and I want you to know that.
Thank you very much, Naomi. We have shared a joyful life in NSA.
We have.
Every year,
Yes.
every minute of every year. All 85 years.